there was a very nice Brahmana, Sudama, friend of Lord Krishna. As a perfect Brahmana, he was very elevated in spiritual knowledge, and because of his advanced knowledge, he was not at all attached to material things. One day, Sudama's wife spoke as follows to him.
My dear husband, I know that Lord Krishna, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, is your personal friend. We are devotees of Lord Krishna, and he is always ready to help his devotees. Lord Krishna is our only shelter. Please therefore go to him. I am sure that he will immediately understand our position. We are householders. Therefore, without any money, we are in a distressed condition. But as soon as he understands our position, he will certainly give us sufficient riches so that we can live very comfortably.
Sudama thought that there was no need to ask any material benefit from Lord Sri Krishna, but he was induced by the repeated requests of his wife. Moreover, he thought,
if I go there, I shall be able to see Lord Krishna personally. That will be a great opportunity, even if I don't ask any material benefit from him.
To go to Krishna. He asked his wife if she had anything in the home that he could offer to Krishna, because he must take some presentation for his friend. The wife immediately collected 4 palms full of chipped rice from her neighboring friends and tied it in a small cloth, like a handkerchief, and gave it to her husband to present to Krishna. Without waiting any longer, the Brahmana took the presentation and began to proceed toward Dwarka to see his lord. While he was proceeding toward Dwarka, he was absorbed in the thought of how he could be able to see Lord Krishna. It was of course very difficult to reach the palaces of the kings of the Yadu dynasty, but Brahmanas were allowed to visit. He Brahmana entered one palace, which was very gorgeously decorated. When he entered this beautiful palace, he felt that he was swimming in the ocean of transcendental pleasure. He felt himself constantly diving and surfacing in that transcendental ocean. At that time, Lord Krishna was sitting next to Queen Rukmini Devi. Even from a considerable distance, he could see the Brahmana coming to his home, and he could recognize him as his friend. Lord Krishna immediately left his seat and came forward to receive his Brahmana friend and, upon reaching him, embraced the Brahmana. Lord Krishna had him seated on his own bedstead and personally brought him all kinds of fruits and drinks to offer him, as is proper in receiving a worshipable guest. Lord Sri Krishna is the supreme God, but because he was teaching us how to treat people, he immediately washed the Brahmana's feet and sprinkled the water onto his head. After thus offering him an adequate welcome, and after the Brahmana had taken food and drink, Lord Krishna said,
My dear friend, it is a great fortune that you have come here.
The goddess of fortune, Rukmini Devi, personally began to fan him with the Kumara fan, but the other people in the palace became astonished at Lord Krishna's behavior in receiving the Brahmana in that way. Lord Krishna said,
My dear Brahmana friend, you are an intelligent personality, and you know very well the principles of religious life. I believe that after you finished your education, you must have gone back to your home and accepted a suitable wife. I know very well that from the beginning you were not at all attached to the materialistic way of life, nor did you desire to be very opulent materially, and therefore you are in need of money. In this material world, persons who are not attached to material opulence are very rarely found. Such unattached persons haven't the least desire to accumulate wealth and prosperity for sense gratification, but sometimes they are found to collect money just to exhibit the exemplary life of a householder. They show how by proper distribution of wealth one can become an ideal householder and at the same time become a great devotee. Such ideal householders are to be considered followers of my footsteps. If a man is sufficiently educated in student life under the guidance of a proper teacher, then his life becomes successful in the future. He can very easily cross over the ocean of nescience, and he is not subjected to the influence of illusory energy. There may be many spiritual masters who instruct, but a bona fide spiritual master is one. A human being who takes advantage of these spiritual masters and, receiving proper knowledge from them, crosses the ocean of material existence, is to be understood as having properly utilized his human form of life. He has practical knowledge that the ultimate interest of life, which is to be gained only in this human form, is to achieve spiritual perfection and thus be transferred back home, back to Godhead. My dear friend, I am Paramatma, the super soul present in everyone's heart, and it is my direct order that human society must follow the principles of Varna and Ashrama. As I have stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the human society should be divided, according to quality and action, into 4 Varnas. I am greatly pleased by your action, and I bless you. May all your desires and ambitions be fulfilled.
Sudama replied,
My dear Krishna, you are the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Spiritual Master of everyone. All the different processes of life are ultimately meant for the understanding of your personality.
Lord Krishna began to smile and asked,
My dear friend, what have you brought for me? Has your wife given you some nice eatable for me? You must have brought some presentation for me from your home. Certainly I am not in need of anything, but if my devotee gives me something as an offering of love, even though it may be very insignificant, I accept it with great pleasure. On the other hand, if a person is not a devotee, even though he may offer me very valuable things, I do not like to accept them. I actually accept only things which are offered to me in devotion and love. Otherwise, however valuable the thing may be, I do not accept it. If my pure devotee offers me even the most insignificant things, a little flower, a little piece of leaf, a little water, but saturates the offering in devotional love, then I not only gladly accept such an offering, but I eat it with great pleasure.
Sudama hesitated to present it to the Lord. He was thinking,
How can I offer such insignificant things to Krishna?
Lord Krishna thought,
Sudama has not come asking anything from me, but being obliged by the request of his wife, he has come to see me just to please her.
Lord Krishna therefore decided that he would give more material opulence to Sudama Vipra than could be imagined even by the king of heaven. He then snatched the bundle of chipped rice which was hanging on the shoulder of the poor Brahmana, packed in one corner of his wrapper, and said,
What is this? My dear friend, you have brought me nice, palatable chipped rice. I consider that this quantity of chipped rice will not only satisfy me, but will satisfy the whole creation.
As watering the root of a tree immediately distributes water to every part of the tree, so an offering made to Krishna, or any action done for Krishna, is to be considered the highest welfare work for everyone, because the benefit of such an offering is distributed throughout the creation. Love for Krishna becomes distributed to all living entities. While Lord Krishna was speaking to Sudama Vipra, he ate one morsel of chipped rice from his bundle, and when he attempted to eat a second morsel, Rukmini Devi, who is the goddess of fortune herself, checked the Lord by catching hold of his hand. After touching the hand of Krishna, Rukmini said,
My dear Lord, this one morsel of chipped rice is sufficient to cause him who offered it to become very opulent in this life, and to continue his opulence in the next life. My Lord, you are so kind to your devotee that even this one morsel of chipped rice pleases you very greatly, and your pleasure assures the devotee opulence both in this life and in the next.
This indicates that when food is offered to Lord Krishna with love and devotion and he is pleased and accepts it from the devotee, Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, becomes so greatly obliged to the devotee that she has to personally go to the devotee's home to turn it into the most opulent home in the world. The learned Brahmana Sudama passed that night at the house of Lord Krishna, and while he was there he felt as if he were living in a Vaikuntha planet. Actually, he was living in Vaikuntha, because wherever Lord Krishna, the original Narayana, and Rukmini Devi, the goddess of fortune, live is not different from the spiritual planet Vaikuntha Loka. The learned Brahmana Sudama did not appear to have received anything substantial from Lord Krishna while he was at his place, and yet he did not ask anything from the Lord. The next morning he started for his home, thinking always about his reception by Krishna, and thus he became merged in transcendental bliss. All the way home, he was simply remembering the dealings of Lord Krishna, and he was feeling very happy to have seen the Lord. Thinking in this way, the learned Brahmana gradually reached his own home. But on reaching there, he saw that everything was wonderfully changed. He saw that in place of his cottage there were big palaces made of valuable stones and jewels, glittering like the sun, moon, and rays of fire. Not only were there big palaces, but at intervals there were beautifully decorated parks, in which many beautiful men and women were strolling. In those parks there were nice lakes full of lotus flowers and beautiful lilies, and there were flocks of multicolored birds. Seeing the wonderful conversion of his native place, the Brahmana began to think to himself,
How am I seeing all these changes? Does this place belong to me or to someone else? If it is the same place where I used to live, then how has it so wonderfully changed?
While the learned Brahmana was considering this, a group of beautiful men and women with features resembling those of the demigods, accompanied by musical chanters, approached to welcome him. All were singing auspicious songs. The wife of the Brahmana became very glad on hearing the tidings of her husband's arrival, and with great haste, she also came out of the palace. As soon as she saw her husband present before her, tears of joy began to fall from her eyes, and her voice became so choked up that she could not even address her husband. She simply closed her eyes in ecstasy. The Brahmana was surprised to see his wife so beautiful, and in great affection, and without saying a word, he entered the palace with his wife. When the Brahmana entered his personal apartment in the palace, he saw that it was not an apartment, but the residence of the King of Heaven. The palace was surrounded by many columns of jewels. The couches and the bedsteads were made of ivory, bedecked with gold and jewels, and the bedding was as white as the foam of milk and as soft as a lotus flower. There were many whisks hanging from golden rods, and many golden thrones with sitting cushions as soft as the lotus flower. In various places there were velvet and silken canopies with laces of pearls hanging all around. The structure of the building was standing on first-class transparent marble, with engravings made of emerald stones. All the women in the palace were carrying lamps made of valuable jewels. The flames and the jewels combined to produce a wonderfully brilliant light. When the Brahmana saw his position suddenly changed to one of opulence, and when he could not determine the cause for such a sudden change, he began to consider very gravely how it had happened. He thus began to think,
From the beginning of my life, I have been extremely poverty-stricken. So what could be the cause of such great and sudden opulence? I do not find any cause other than the all-merciful glance of my friend Lord Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty. Certainly these are gifts of Lord Krishna's causeless mercy. The Lord is self-sufficient, the husband of the goddess of fortune, and thus he is always full with 6 opulences. He can understand the mind of his devotee, and he sumptuously fulfills the devotee's desires. All these are acts of my friend, Lord Krishna. My beautiful dark friend Krishna is far more liberal than the cloud which can fill up the great ocean with water. Without disturbing the cultivator with rain during the day, the cloud brings liberal rain at night just to satisfy him. And yet, when the cultivator wakes up in the morning, he considers that it has not rained enough. Similarly, the Lord fulfills the desire of everyone according to his position, and yet one who is not in Krishna consciousness considers all the gifts of the Lord to be less than his desire. On the other hand, when the Lord receives a little thing in love and affection from his devotee, he considers it a great and valuable gift. The vivid example is myself. I simply offered him a morsel of chipped rice, and in exchange he has given me opulences greater than the opulence of the King of Heaven. I pray to have the friendship of Lord Krishna and to engage in his service, and to surrender fully unto him in love and affection, life after life. I do not want any opulence. I only desire not to forget his service. I simply wish to be associated with his pure devotees. May my mind and activities be always engaged in his service. The unborn Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna knows that many great personalities have fallen from their positions because of extravagant opulence. Therefore, even when his devotee asks for some opulence from him, the Lord sometimes does not give it. He is very cautious about his devotees, because a devotee in an immature position of devotional service may, if offered great opulence, fall from his position due to being in the material world. The Lord does not offer opulence to him. This is another manifestation of the causeless mercy of the Lord upon his devotee. His first interest is that the devotee may not fall. He is exactly like a well-wishing father who does not give much wealth into the hand of his immature son, but who, when the son is grown up and knows how to spend money, gives him the whole treasury house.
The learned Brahmana thus concluded that whatever opulences he had received from the Lord should not be used for his extravagant sense gratification, but for the service of the Lord. The Brahmana accepted his newly acquired opulence, but he did so in a spirit of renunciation, unattached to sense gratification, and thus he lived very peacefully with his wife, enjoying all the facilities of opulence as prasadam of the Lord. He enjoyed varieties of foodstuff by offering it to the Lord and then taking it as prasadam. Similarly, if by the grace of the Lord we get such opulences as material wealth, fame, power, education, and beauty, it is our duty to consider that they are all gifts of the Lord and must be used for his service, not for our sense enjoyment. The learned Brahmana remained in that position, and instead of deteriorating due to great opulence, his love and affection for Lord Krishna increased day after day. Material opulence can be the cause of degradation and also the cause of elevation, according to the purposes for which it is used. If opulence is used for sense gratification, it is the cause of degradation, and if it is used for the service of the Lord, it is the cause of elevation. Sudama Vipra realized that although Lord Krishna is unconquerable, he nevertheless agrees to be conquered by his devotees. He realized how kind Lord Krishna was to him, and he was always in trance, constantly thinking of Krishna. By such constant association with Lord Krishna, whatever darkness of material contamination was remaining within his heart was completely cleared away, and very shortly he was transferred to the spiritual kingdom, which is the goal of all saintly persons in the perfectional stage of life. Sukadeva Goswami has stated that all persons who hear this history of Sudama Vipra and Lord Krishna will know how affectionate Lord Krishna is to the Brahmana devotees like Sudama. Therefore, anyone who hears this history gradually becomes as qualified as Sudama Vipra, and he is thus transferred
For more
to
stories,
the spiritual
please
kingdom
read the
of
Krishna
Lord
Book
Krishna,
translated
from Sanskrit to many languages by Srila Prabhupada. Remember that when you all hear the story about Sudama Brahman and offer with pure love devotional service, all of you will become fortunate and rich like Sudama Brahman. Please don't forget to subscribe to this good luck channel that has great rewarding stories about Lord Krishna. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. Hare Krishna.